Episode 13. The gang is closing in on their goal of making the antibiotics, but they need alcohol. It just so happens that the Grand Bout is offering alcohol as a part of the prize, so now they have all the more reason to win the Grand Bout. To increase the odds of them winning, everyone joins, including Senku. After almost half a year since arriving at the village with Kohaku, Senku is finally allowed to set foot in the village to take part in the Grand Bout. When he meets Ruri, she recognizes his name, even though they have never met, and she asks him about his surname, which no one uses in this time. She collapses before he can answer, but he says that they're gonna have a long talk once everything is settled. Magma's henchman Mantle recognizes that Kohaku's strength is still a problem because she was the one that defeated Magma in the last Grand Bout. To counter how OP she is, he kidnaps Suika and ties her to a tree. He then approaches them, giving them the story that Suika is drowning. This forces Kohaku to go since she is the fastest, but also compromises their last line of defense against Magma. Over to Suika, who manages to get free from her bindings and makes it to the Grand Bout just in time to see Kinra, who is facing off against Magma in the first fight. He was holding his own pretty well thanks to his training, but he too also has bad eyesight like Suika, and this causes him to start to lose ground. Suika can tell that his vision is the problem, so she throws him her mask with the lenses in it, allowing him to see clearly in the fight. Turns out that he was always a lot stronger than Magma, he could just never see, putting him at a disadvantage, but now that they're on even terms, Magma doesn't stand a chance. Episode 14. Even though it looks like the fight is over, Magma convinces Kinro to talk to the ref about the helmet being allowed or not, and once his back is turned, Magma attacks him from behind, defeating him with a cheap shot. What's the fucking point of having a ref if you're gonna let shit like this slide? So Kinra gets eliminated, everybody's like, oh, okay, yep, seems good. Mantle then throws his match to ensure that Kohaku can't make it back in time, which gets her disqualified, but she doesn't really care, she's just happy to see that Suika is okay. We get some filler fights that don't really mean anything, but then it comes down to Chrome versus Magma. Chrome is obviously in over his head and getting beaten down pretty badly. He gets the idea to use the glass in Suika's helmet that was destroyed when Magma attacked Ginro from behind to start a fire. He needs time for the fire to start, which cues the return of Gen, who Magma is shocked to see because he thought he had killed him. Gen convinces him that he's alive due to his magic, and he cursed Magma so that if he moves, his heart will explode, but the curse will only last 1 minute. This bullshit buys enough time for Chrome to start the fire and knock Magma out of the ring, making him the winner in the most anticlimactic fight ever. Episode 15. Now that Magma is out of the running, there are only 3 contestants left, with Senku going against Ginro, and the winner of that will go against Chrome in the finals. The original plan was for everybody to work together to get Chrome to win. This is because Ruri and Chrome are clearly thirsty as fuck for each other, but Ruri doesn't want to come off as too desperate, so she says that she would marry anybody who won. Ginro doesn't pick up on the connection between Chrome and Ruri, so he decides that, hey, if she's gonna marry anybody, I'm gonna put my name in for nomination. He decides to go all out on Senku, gets hit in the nuts, and concedes. Senku tries forfeiting to Chrome in the finals, but he is still in bad shape from his fight with Magma, so he falls unconscious, making Senku the winner of the Grand Bout. He gets the rights to marry Ruri, and then immediately divorces her because he was just after the alcohol. They work round the clock to finish up their sulfura drug, and after administering it to Ruri, they learn that she has pneumonia. The sulfura drug proves to be effective against it, and Ruri is finally healthy again. As a reward, Senku is declared chief of the village, which is actually named Ishigami Village, the same surname as Senku. Upon hearing this, Ruri reveals that she has known about Senku ever since she was a child. Episode 16. Ruri tells him that she knew about his name because of stories that she had heard from her mother. The story was about Senku's father, Byakuya Ishigami, and how he became an astronaut with the help of Senku. He goes into space with cosmonaut Shamil Volkov and an American singer, Lillian Weinberg. Arriving at the International Space Station, they meet with Connie, Dahlia, and Yakov. While in space, the phenomenon that petrified everybody occurs, giving them a front row view of the event and the aftermath from live streams. They come to the conclusion that they're the only 6 humans left and they need to get back to Earth. Episode 17. Byakuya makes some big brain plays and determines that the event had originated from South America. Shamil, Lillian, and Connie makes their way back to Earth but wind up in the middle of the ocean, forcing the other 3 to go back in order to save them. Byakuya takes a boat out to them and the 6 of them manage to survive living on a nearby island. They live happy lives for the most part, even having kids, but it couldn't last forever as pneumonia struck them as well. One by one, they all started to die, so Byakuya writes the 100 Tales, which is a collection of stories and facts to pass down to their descendants for happier lives and in hopes that Senku would come across them. Jump back on up to the present where Ruri and Senku go to the cemetery where Byakuya and all the others had been buried. When they return to the village, they have a party going on, and Gen spoils the mood by saying that Tsukasa is coming and bringing an army, which prompts an eager response from Senku. Episode 18. They don't have any time to prepare as Tsukasa's men and their leader, Hyoga, launch an attack on the village. Kinro sends Ginro to alert the others while he holds him off, but now that he's back to having bad vision, he loses. Ginro is faced with having to cut down the bridge and sacrifice Kinro to protect the village, but he can't bring himself to do it. Senku creates a guise to make it seem as though they've already figured out how to make guns, and this lie is enough to deter them in fear of being shot. They rethink their plan and decide that all they need to do is attack when there is a storm, that way the guns won't work. Only 3 days pass before a storm rolls in, marking the chance for their second assault on the village. The village was hard at work in those 3 days though, and with Senku's guidance, they managed to form katanas to fight back against the enemy's primitive arsenal. Having the upper hand with their new weapons, they managed to break all of the spears using the katanas. Hyoga is still putting up a fight, but Gen had found an opportunity to sabotage Hyoga's spear so it breaks in the middle of the fighting. Without weapons, the assailants are forced to retreat a second time, and Gen's alliance to the Kingdom of Science is now known to Tsukasa and his men. Episode 19. We get a short and rather pointless flashback of Tsukasa waking up Hyoga after searching for him because he's a strong fighter but is still weaker than Tsukasa. We then learn that the attack really wasn't meant to work. It was just a distraction so that Hyoga's right-hand woman, Homura, could set all of the huts in the village on fire. This leaves all of the villagers out in the open and vulnerable to a possible attack. Some of Hyoga's men are looking for an opportunity to take a hostage, and they target Suika. She makes a run for it, hoping to protect the other villagers, and they end up near the pool of sulfuric acid. Kohaku manages to get to Suika as the wind blows toxic gas toward them, getting a mask on her and protecting themselves. This leaves Hyoga and his men stranded in a tree while the others make their escape. He wants to see if the air below is actually toxic, so he sacrifices 3 of the grunts, finding out that it is toxic and they're gonna be stuck there for a bit. They know that the longer they wait, the more men Tsukasa will recruit with the revival fluid, so Senku plans to make a phone in order to help in the fight. Episode 20. Most of this episode is the village working together under their new chief's orders to make the phone. At first they need wires, so they make a cotton candy machine and test it with sugar to work out the imperfections. Knowing that Homura is likely spying on them to keep track of their progress and make sure they didn't flee, good guy Senku decides to leave her some cotton candy as well. They make gears to help with the labor and start making as much wiring as they can. Chrome has also been working on a project of his own, and with the help of Kaseki, they accidentally create a water wheel, surprising and pleasing Senku. Episode 21. Senku continues making leaps in their means of production, using the water wheel to relieve a lot of the work strain on the others. He then goes on to make the light bulb and decorates a tree with a bunch of them so that they could celebrate Christmas. After that, he works with Kaseki to make a vacuum tube, but the problem is that they can't find a mineral that can withstand the heat. As everybody gets together to celebrate the first sunrise of the new year, a rock that Suika had found starts to glow. This makes Senku realize that tungsten, the most heat-resistant metal in the world, is what they need to make a vacuum tube work, so Magma, Chrome, and Senku volunteer themselves to go on a mission and collect more of it. Episode 22. While in a mine looking for tungsten, the 3 end up in a predicament when Magma and Senku fall into a sinkhole, leaving them stranded. At first, it looked like Magma was trying to kill Senku by pushing him into the hole, but later on, it's revealed that he was really just trying to save him. Well stuck together, they both agree that there are roles that they both need to fill, and they put their differences behind them, at least until Tsukasa is dealt with. There's a small body of water nearby, and Krung comes up with the idea to fill the hole with the water until it reaches high enough for them to crawl out. They both manage to make it out and mine a deposit of various minerals before heading back to the village. When they arrive, Senku is greeted with a gift that the others had been working on over the days that they were gone. Gen uses his knowledge from the old world to direct everybody on how to build an observatory as a gift for Senku on his birthday. Episode 23 is them building the phone. Yeah, episode 24. Everyone is super excited that they succeeded in finishing the phone, until they find out that they need to make another one in order for it to work. Despite this, they can still test it across wires, confirming that it's working properly. Ruri and Senku end up talking about one of the 100 Tales, which was actually a hint from Byakuya. The hint leads them to his gravestone, where they find a glass record preserved inside. Byakuya recorded a message onto it, so Senku constructs a phonograph to play the message back. He talks about how he knows it's Senku listening, and the gist of it is an implication that he loves him. To leave things on a high note, we get a song recording from Lillian, since she was a famous singer. Everyone is moved by the music, and Senku says that it's not just music, but there were all kinds of entertainment, and he wants to work towards bringing all of it back. First things first though, the Kingdom of Science has to figure out a way to bring down the Tsukasa Empire. This all starts with getting back into contact with their moles on the inside, Taiju and Yuzuriya. I'm going to be doing the future seasons, and you can find that on the left side whenever I'm finished with it, or you can check out all the Dr. Stone recaps in the playlist on the right side. You can also find the links in the description below, and the only thing I hate more than intros is outros.